the Kia K5 all-wheel drive GT line. Now, Mark and I have already done a long video on the K5 when equipped with the 2.5T, and in Korean, those experiences can be best described as no bueno. They are a torque steering one-wheel peel dynamic disaster. However, this 1.6 liter turbocharged four-cylinder, when paired with the all-wheel drive system, supposedly makes a fairly large difference. So in this video, we're going to walk you through some of the technical difference between this and the front-wheel drive variant, what this thing is like to live with on the inside, and take this for a spin on the road. So with that, enjoy. Inside the Kia K5, this is a GT line equipped vehicle, which means it's somewhere in the middle of the K5 product portfolio. As equipped with every single option found on the GT line trim, it comes in at about $32,000. And really the name of the game for the K5 product portfolio is value. What you give up here is some of the solidity or perceived quality found in the Japanese offerings like the Accord and Camry, which are trying to take those cars up market. This still feels like an economy car largely. I will say the interior design is rather pleasing. However, some of the plastics found in the door and the center console feel rather cheap. That said, you can get this car in the low $20,000 range, so take that with a grain of salt. The interior electronics, however, are some of the best in this segment. The safety suite in this car, the adaptive cruise control, active lane keep assist, and lane departure warning system works great. The infotainment works far better than what's found in the Camry and Accord. However, weirdly, the audio system found in the GT line is Kia's poverty line system. For some reason, you can't get the optional Bose system with the GT line and all-wheel drive. It's a weird pairing issue. Past that though, the ergonomics of this cabin are great. Everything's physical when it comes to the control structure. There's a reasonable amount of storage despite the door cards being rather small. The seats fit a wide variety of body types. However, with the optional sunroof, you will limit some of the taller drivers. So if you are above 6 foot tall, do not opt for this panoramic sunroof. So with that said, let's talk about the back seats and trunk. What you get in this car is a cavernous trunk space. It is truly enormous, and the rear seats do fold down, which adds to some of its usability. And the back seats are pretty decent. My co-host, who was best described as a sentient lemur, often complains that I talk about how huge I am. And I will say, if I push my seats all the way back, I don't crush his little manlet legs. So with that, let's head to the shop and talk about all the technical features of this car. Korean cars, Mark. We got another one. This is the K5, but this time around, it's the all-wheel drive model. And I've had the fortune of spending time now in the poverty spec, four-cylinder rental car grade K5, this all-wheel drive 1.6 liter, and the torque steering monster that is the high output four-cylinder front-wheel drive variant.
Yeah, 2.5 dual injection, which this isn't. That was horrible to drive. We've already talked about this car or the platform that it's on with the Hyundai Sonata. If you want to see all the technical details about this car, watch the Sonata because it's the same thing. Now, Kia does tuning differently. Suspension is the same, but damper settings, spring rates, sway bars are a little bit different, but some of the core stuff that they do, transmission, the gearbox is the same. This is a torque converted automatic 1.6 liter turbo that is shared across the entire K5 lineup from, like you said, poverty spec all the way to this GT line. Now, all-wheel drive is only available on 2 trim levels at this point, and you can't get it on the high-output model. Much like the N Line Sonata, it's front-wheel drive only. Now, when you add all-wheel drive to this, it takes all the power that normally would be wasted through the front wheels or traction stability control kicking on, and it's able to send a majority of it to the back in small doses. It's an on-demand system, and at least in this, there's no changes to brakes for the GT line. It's the same. There's no changes to transmission gearing. It has a column-mounted EPS, not a rack-mounted EPS like the full 2.5 liter offers. But the main things to talk about: isolation, road noise reduction, NVH reduction, and they're trying to make this feel more refined. You have strut front, you have multi-link rear. There is sparing use of aluminum here and there because Hyundai obviously is big on steel. But this looks completely identical to the Sonata that we looked at. And there's not much more to say here except get this on the road and see just how much of a difference adding all-wheel drive to a turbocharged setup is compared to that front-wheel drive only.
All right, Mark, let's do it.
All right, Jack, all-wheel drive, 1.6 liter turbo. How's this gonna handle corners? In the wet on top of it.
Yes, Mark, we are in our Midwestern winter wonderland, or hellscape, depending on who you are. And this is the perfect environment to really feel that Korean engineering all-wheel drive.
So we did the Sonata and we did the two K5s with the 2.5 liter turbo, which made almost 300 horsepower, and it was horrible to drive.
If you had to turn and accelerate at the same time, it was a bad time.
So this, you have less power, but the all-wheel drive part of it, oh boy, what is that? What's happening here?
It's called grip, Mark.
And why do we have so much grip? It's unbelievable. And I think some of this, so to go back to the main thing is there's so many manufacturers now that are focusing on trying to sell cars from spec sheets. The wow factor of, look at what we have, it's so sporty. And then, you get on a test drive and the test drives are just, you're in a crowded area or there's traffic. You put your foot down in a straight line and you're like, wow, this is amazing. You don't get to experience these cars like we do. And the big reason why I love this car is because it's not about the power number. It's about the power number being completely adequate and 100% utilized in this car. There's not a time that it's ever wasted spinning the wheels. There's never a problem with traction. The stability control system isn't hyperactive. If you decide to leave that on, it's not constantly cutting power, interrupting your drive. So everything feels very natural, and it gives you a sense of fun and control of this that the higher horsepower variants don't.
Yeah, there's a sense of whimsicalness that's been lost in a lot of cars like this. However, I will say when compared to, say, the Camry or Accord, this definitely feels a little bit more of a shitbox. I can't think of another word for it. It lacks some of the higher-end solidity that the Camry at least perceives has, or at least I perceive it to have.
Yeah, and I would agree with you in that part. It doesn't feel as isolated. It doesn't feel as luxurious in some ways. There's more NVH, at least to my ear, on this GT line. But it's also a breath of fresh air because every single car now, every single sedan is trying to do this upmarket thing. They have to be better, and you lose some of that connectedness. Like, this car feels like I'm driving it. It doesn't feel like it's hampered by everything. It doesn't feel like everything's been tuned out of it. And I understand that most people want that, but if you're looking for a sedan that kind of makes you feel like, oh, okay, I could go out on a drive and I could really drive this like a dick and it's not going to fly off the road, everything feels pretty natural.
So with that said, Mark, let's talk more about suspension tuning specifically. How does this compare to the other cars in this class?
I feel like it's somewhere finding a middle ground. There's never a time that I felt like it was too firm. I will say it is a little bit pushing the firm side, but people are going to think this is a great riding car. It does well over high compression areas. Like and I had this out in the snow and salt, and I was driving over really bad roads, and even hitting some of these icy patches, you got enough suspension travel on it, and you still felt in control. The tires are not the greatest here, but I have almost no problems with suspension tuning.
It is remarkably confidence-inspiring. The stuff you can get away with, like, through these corners.
Yeah, and I'm going to push this through. And, like, the front-wheel drive versions of this car, all you do is understeer. This car, it starts to understeer, but it's able to send so much power to the back that in the snow, I was able to get this thing sideways, obviously with the traction and stability control off. So they've tuned it to the point where it's like some cars you feel like you need an e-brake to get through a turn in front-wheel drive. This just pulls you right through and sending the power to the back at the right time I don't know. I really like this car. I think it's one of the best new sedans that I've driven in a long time.
And what that translates to for regular people who aren't going to drive this flat out is if you're in bad weather, it should get you through most inclement conditions.
Oh, absolutely. And I felt great driving this, and if it had a set of real snow or winter tires on it, I think somebody would be so impressed driving this.
No, I don't disagree with you at all. How does this 1.6 compare in your mind to the 1.5 in the Honda Accord, or the 2-liter for that matter, or the 4-cylinder and 6-cylinder variants in the Camry?
Well, I think the thing is with the Toyota and the Honda, this overall, like, and I said this at the start, it completely utilizes all its power. So it makes it feel way more natural, and it doesn't feel underpowered. So to get all-wheel drive on the Camry, you got to go to the 2.5 liter, which feels vastly underpowered, and it still feels more of like a boat. Same thing with the Avalon. The Accord is front-wheel drive only. We drove the 2-liter Sport, and that, it was okay, but it had the same problem that the 2.5 and this had. There's a lot of torque steer.
And it's open diff.
It's open diff, so you just wind up spinning the tires and spinning the wheels a lot instead of utilizing all of it. I think that's kind of where I'm going to leave it, Jack. What do you think?
I think if you are okay with the Kia buying experience, you won't get necessarily the quality that a Toyota dealership or Honda dealership will offer you in that, the customer experience, whether it be in service or actually the purchasing part of it. If you can look past that, this is probably the best value in the segment.
Right, absolutely.
So with that, Mark, before we fly off this road, are you ready to go into the final thoughts?
Absolutely, Jack. Let's do it.
All right.
Final thoughts on the K5 GT line all-wheel drive. Now, you'll see plenty of people in media saying how great the K5 is. In fact, I would agree with them and think this is probably one of the best sedans on the market currently, with a few exceptions. You definitely want to avoid the turbo front-wheel drive high horsepower option. When you get behind the wheel of this car, moderately spec'd out, it does everything so well. It rides good, it's just got enough isolation. The handling is great with the all-wheel drive setup, and the 1.6 liter turbo is perfectly matched to that system to use all of it. The fact that you have a traditional torque converted automatic means it drives well. There's no CVT drone, and the exterior styling is finally something that's not put you to sleep boring, that you're not going to lose it in a parking lot. There's good color options, and you can get this for an affordable price. The audio system is a bit weak. Moving to Bose is a mixed bag. That's something you're definitely going to want to listen to when you get into this. But I think a majority of the buying public can feel safe knowing they're going to get a lot for their money here, like most Hyundai and Kia products. But this is peak level Kia sedan. I really enjoyed driving this iteration. It's one of the first ones you should check out if you're in the market for a sedan. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.